Rodney and Teresa Walls are very special to me. When 2010, when I went to Honduras as a missionary, I had just met them. I didn't really know them except to see their face on the poster, and we had just met each other, but I didn't know them. But they met me at the airport, and we got back to Faith Home, and they took me to what would be my house for the next 3 years. And then, just a few minutes after I was there and started unpacking, now, I was a widow, and I had left an 18-month-old granddaughter, and I had left, my sons and my parents, who were not very happy with me at the time, and gone to Honduras, and I was already starting to feel homesick. And I hear this knock on the door, and it was Teresa. And Teresa came and spent the afternoon with me and sat there on my bed as I unpacked my clothes. And that meant so much to me because I was really already starting to feel a little homesick and thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing here? But from that moment on, that was in 2010, and on January 2nd, 2010, we have been best friends. And Rodney comes along with the package, so I'm teasing. I love Rodney too. But as I mentioned before, our kids worship. We take an offering each week, and we sponsor a child at Faith Home, and we also sponsor Rodney and Teresa Walls with one share, which isn't very much, just $10 a month, but for the kids to do that, it is a pleasure. And we're so excited they're here today. I don't know if you all noticed when you came in, the kids coming over to see Lizelle. We're so excited. A couple of them had cards for her and made things for her, and they were so glad to see her. And we pray for her on Wednesdays and on Sundays, and we're so glad to have them here. Rodney is, they were at Faith Home when I was there. You're thinking, gosh, 2010, they've been there for 9 years. Well, actually, they were there from 2008 to 2012. And then they came back to the States and were pastoring a church in South Carolina, Turbeville, South Carolina, for 4 years. And then God called them to go back. He said, we're not finished with you. We want you to go back. So they went back to Honduras, and they're serving there again. They went back in 2016, and they are serving there now. They are in the States now because Lizelle, who has been entrusted to their care for the last 3 years, needs surgery, and they're going to tell you all about that. But I just want you to give them a warm Providence General Baptist welcome, and I hope when we take up the love offering at the end that your pockets will overflow and help them with all their expenses. They got up this morning, they spent the night last night. They were going to spend the night with us, but because of we were in Louisville with the celebration of life for my sister, they spent the night with their daughter in Bloomington last night. So they got up and drove from Bloomington this morning, and then this afternoon they will drive all the way back. You go to St. Louis and then you go this way, and it's about 4 hours. So I was just there a few weeks ago, so they've got had a long day. And Lizelle is tired from the trip. She's not her usual laughing self this morning, but we're really glad that they are here. So without further ado, let's give Rodney and Teresa a warm welcome.
I'm going to start with an introduction. Apparently, the children already know her very well. But for some of you that do not know Lizelle, she came to Faith Home when she was 3 weeks old, and she weighed less than 4 pounds. Tiny. And it was evident from the beginning that she's had a lot of things going on in her life. In fact, she is, for the rest of her life, will pay for the sins of her mother because of alcohol and drug abuse during pregnancy. So she was tiny, Teresa being a nurse, and we kind of committed to taking her at least short term, till as things developed. That short term, she has now been with us 3 years. She's a joy to be around. She loves singing, and so she always perks up, and we thank you for singing for her today. That was great. But there's a song, and we sing it down at the church that we attend in San Pedro on Sunday mornings. It's English speaking, and we go there and we take her with us. And there's a song, and it's Christ alone, cornerstone, the weak made strong in the Savior's love. And there was one particular Sunday we were singing that, and some days she's kind of like a limp noodle. She has cerebral palsy, and she suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome, which again are lifelong things. I felt Fetal syndrome once she went through detox, and wow, that was a tough month. For her especially. But I thought once we got past that, she'd be okay. And that's only a small part of it. There are a lot of side effects to that she'll have with her. But anyway, some days she's kind of like a limp noodle. And that day we were singing that song, and it was one of those days where she was kind of limp. And I remember thinking that someday the weak made strong. Someday. Now, in my mind's eye, that day is going to take place on this side. Because I envision her chasing me around the room and Teresa yelling at us. But even if it is not, someday the weak made strong in the Savior's love. And so we will share more about Liselle and her story as we go along. But I wanted to share with you this morning some exciting things that God is doing in Honduras. In fact, it's kind of amazing just simply to be a part of what He's doing. Now, when it comes to being weak, I think we can all at least associate a little bit with being weak. Because we've all been there. Whether physically or even spiritually sometimes. Now sometimes spiritually speaking, we try to put on a front, don't we? Especially at church. We're strong, everything's okay. And we know God's grace is sufficient, and it is. I'm not saying it, but so we put on a face of strength sometimes, even when we're hurting and falling apart inside. We boast strength, but we know the Peter truth. The Peter truth is he boasted strength, but Jesus said, before the rooster crows, you'll disown me 3 times. And he said, well, basically, these other guys, they may do that, but I will never disown you. The flesh is willing. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The truth is, we are only strong in Him. We bring weakness to the table, but He brings His strength and His power to the table. See, without Him, we don't see much going on. But in Him, all of a sudden, things we never even imagined could happen, begin to happen, because Christ alone. Paul said, I can do all things, and here's the key part to that whole verse that we quote all the time. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Well, we took Liselle to Dr. Velasquez in San Pedro. He's a neurologist there. And there were some things going on Teresa was concerned about. And at the end of his visit, he basically said that he had gone as far as he could go in this process. And so he suggested that we think about getting her to the States for an evaluation, just to see if there was something else they could do. And we knew that things were kind of stacked against us. It's kind of a long story, but the truth is, initially we were told they would not allow her to come out. We prayed about it, but we just felt like we should try. At least if they tell us no, they tell us no, but we should try. And so we decided to do that. And one day as I was kind of recounting, I said, man, it's all stacked against us. All the percentages are against us. And Teresa looked at me that day as she sat at the kitchen table and said, you know what? God's not interested in percentages. Now that's true, folks. That God is not interested in percentages. If God calls us to do it, we can have faith and obedience to do it, and He'll open the doors. And if God opens the doors, there is nobody that can shut them. And it is time for the church today to recognize that truth and move forward. We can look around and bemoan the terrible conditions of especially our country right now, or we can decide that we're going to follow Jesus and let Him begin to do the immeasurably more in our lives as we have faith and obedience in Him. And the choice is up to us. God doesn't worry about percentages. If you go to the next slide, I want to read you a couple of verses out of Ephesians, because I think this captures some important truths for us. Ephesians chapter 3, verses 20 and 21. And it should be on the next slide so that you can read it with me. Now to Him. Now Paul has already prayed for the Ephesians. He's prayed that they'll be strong. He's prayed that they're going to learn about the love of God even more and more. And he says, now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Think about that just a moment for us. Immeasurably more than we ask. Now I know how to ask. Asking in prayer is not an issue, okay? Well, I know how to ask, and I can ask for what I consider some pretty big things. But Paul says he's able to do immeasurably more than we ask, and he doesn't stop there. He says, but even imagine. In other words, it's kind of like God told the prophet Habakkuk. He said, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed, for I am going to do something in your day that you would not believe, even if I told you. In other words, God said, I can tell you what I'm getting ready to do, but it would still blow your mind. Immeasurably more than we ask. And today, Liselle is with us and with you because God did immeasurably more than we asked. And He allowed her to come and to be a part and to seek treatment. Well, as we sat around in Honduras in our field council with Brother Mark Powell, the Director of Missions, and a couple of others, we meet annually and go over things. And we sat in that meeting and we shared with Mark how we really felt compelled that we wanted to try to get Liselle to the States because of her condition. And that particular day, I will never forget what he said, and I've appreciated it since that day. What Brother Mark said that day is, he said, if we do not fight for this little girl, nobody will. If we don't fight for it, nobody's going. You see, in her society, she's a throwaway. Down there, out of sight, out of mind, and they push them away. They don't want anything to do with them. And there's nothing down there from a government standpoint to help them. So we don't fight for them. Now, I will tell you that we includes Teresa and me. And she's in our hearts, and we will fight for her until we have no breath left. That we included Mark Powell as he sat there around that table, even as the Director of Mission. We fight for the children. That we included Christina Massey as we as missionaries served down there. But understand that we includes all of you as well. Because Faith Home and the ministry of Honduras is God's ministry, without doubt. But it is a ministry that God has called General Baptist to do. And so we fight for Liselle, and we fight for all of the children of Faith. Because if we don't fight for them, nobody will. Now, if you go to the next slide, you'll see some faces. And I kind of entitled the Faces of Faith Home. Got ahead of myself. This, by the way, right now we have 50 children at Faith Home. Just got 3 new ones, little bitty guys. 3, 4, maybe 5. 3, 4, and 5, I think. A couple of them are siblings. But anyway, this house is being prepared by house parents. It had went through some things and needed to be repaired. And we hired some house parents, and now we can take children, and a couple of these children are going into this house. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see I believe the faces of the children. But the idea is that when I think of Faith Home, I don't think of buildings. And I was asked way back when, I believe may have been 2009, 2010, somebody said, when you think about Faith Home, what do you think about it? And I told them that day, I said, when I think of Faith Home, I think of faces. I think of the faces of the little ones that are there. Now, when they come to Faith Home, so often you can tell a lot by their eyes. They often come with sad eyes, and I understand it. You think about some of the conditions that they came out of. Wow, terrible conditions. And yet, when we begin to share the love of Jesus with them, fighting for them with His love. See, when we give ourselves to, all of a sudden, those sad eyes brighten and smiles go on their face. Again, if we can get to the next slide. Okay. My bad.
The slide that you wanted was deleted. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. It's all right. We can live with it. What you were going to see is a variety of there are 3 pictures and all the happiness of Faith Home, because it's a happy place. These children that didn't have anybody to take care of them have a place to live. We fight for them by providing food for them, clothing for them, shelter for them, education for them. So they don't have to worry about those things. chances are Liselle lived on the street for 3 weeks after she was born. And some of our children live on there for years after growing up. But they don't have to worry about it. That's how we fight for the children. And right now, again, God has blessed us, General Baptist, with nearly 50 children to take care of. Now, on February 26th of this year, something significant happened in the life of Faith. And what happened was we surpassed 20 years of having children. The first children arrived on February 26, 1999. Jorge, Alan, and Erica were the first 3 children of Faith. They've now grown up and gone out to make their mark on the world. But for 20 years we've had children, and some 150 children have come. Amazing to stop and think about the lives touched as we share the love of Jesus with them. Now, as they go, they do what all children do. They grow up and they go out. And I wanted to show you these pictures because this is what Faith Home is about, by the way. The vision of Faith Home is that we will love them with the love of Jesus. They'll embrace that love, and then they will go out and change their country. Missionaries come and go. We'll come and go. But it's their country. In this picture on the left, I drew a circle around a young lady, and her name is Doris, and Doris grew up in Faith Home. She's now out making her own mark, but during this particular photo, she was out being a translator for one of our medical teams that we have that come down here and do a week of medical things to area communities. In fact, all 4 of our translators for that team were former children of Faith, wanting to give back. That's what it's about. Them growing up and them sharing the love of Jesus. And one of the couples on this team had supported Doris all the time she was at Faith. And I said, isn't it cool? You're not supporting her now, but you're serving Jesus alongside of her. And that's what it's about. That's the vision. That's why we do this thing called Faith Home. And in the picture on the right, the young man, his name is Henry. And he's such a gifted musician, but he's also a gifted worship leader. He's so shy in person. But you get him on a platform with God's people. And he leads worship at an area General Baptist church 3 times a week. And all of a sudden you see the Spirit of God come on. It's such an amazing transformation. And he leads worship. And he too was out with a team doing some translating as they were doing some children's ministry in one of our local churches. That's the vision. That's what we want them to grow up and to go out. See, God is doing, I believe, immeasurably. There's other children I could talk about. Odin, who's grown up and gone out and making her mark. I've talked about Erica and Alan and others. Now, they've not all embraced the right path. But the thing that we can say is they all know the right path. And that's how we fight. Well, the ministry of Honduras, and God's doing immeasurably more through the children, but He's also doing a great work in our churches as well. In fact, as much as I love Faith Home, and we've given years of our life to the children there, as much as I love Faith Home, it's a child center, it's an orphanage, but an orphanage is not the hope of the world. The church of the living Christ is the hope. And in our church center, in fact, just before we left in July for the initial time to come up here with Liselle, there is now formally the General Baptist Churches of Honduras. They've organized and they're recognized by the government. We now have another denomination, just like we have in India and the Philippines. It is now the General Baptist Churches of Honduras. And in this last year, if you go to the next slide, we've had 2 new works. And I know it didn't sound like a lot, but we're beginning to see things develop and to grow. One of them came out of a little bitty community. We went in and we rented a little house, and they meet on their front porch, and it's probably not more than 4 feet in width and about maybe 20 feet long, maybe not quite that. And they're now averaging nearly 50 adults in that little bit. But you go there and it's tight. I mean, they're jammed in there like sardines, and it's hot and stuffy, but they're there and they're praising the Lord. The work is growing. And we know it's growing because year to date there's been over 26 baptisms. 26 baptisms in our churches. See, that is the hope of the world. We go down there and God's doing immeasurably more as we start churches. Go to the next slide. This is one of the works. Right now they're laying block. Well, they're not right now because we bought them some block of material right before. I had to go back for 3 weeks here recently while Teresa and Lyselle stayed behind. And I was able to get them some materials to start building the church. We bought the land, it's paid for. We're beginning to build the church. And I got word just about a week ago that they'd run out of supplies. I said, well, give me a month or two and I'll be back and we'll see what we can do when we get there again. But we're building a building where God will be worshipped just like yours. Well, not exactly like yours. Yours will be a lot nicer than theirs. But a place where God's people will come together and praise Him. Immeasurably more. If we're just willing to follow a little bit, we'll see God work. We have another new work in, if you go to the next slide, in a nearby community. First church we've had in that community, in Villanueva. Juancito is the pastor there, and it's exciting as he's come on board with us, and we're seeing what God is doing there. You can go to the next slide, too, at this point. We started the Honduras Bible Institute, and right now the lead teacher is Pastor Miguel Ramirez. I've known Pastor Miguel since our time there the first time, known him for years. I meet with him on a regular basis, but he does more of the teaching. Right now, in our churches in the north, our 10 churches in the north, there's nearly 60 people that are taking his class. And out of that, we've already had 2 pastors that have been called out. One started the church that I showed you about where they're doing the construction, and the other one was a restart of a church that was really struggling, down to 4 or 5 people, and now it's beginning to blossom as well. And out of that group of the Honduras Bible Institute, we've got 2 sets of new house parents at Faith. God is at work. We hadn't even thought about Him hooking us up with house parents out of this group, right? Immeasurably more, right? We hadn't got there, but God is training them to come and to make an impact on the life of the children. Immeasurably. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that there's also a clinic there. And that truly is immeasurably more. For 10 years, the building had been built, but nothing happened there. It's a real process that had to take place. When we went back there the second time, Brother Mark Powell looked at Teresa because she's a nurse and said, "Look, you got to figure out what we're going to do there. We've had this building for 10 years. Let's get something going." And they told her, he said, "By the way, you don't have any money to work with." Now, God don't worry about that sort of stuff, right? God owns the camel. God provides, and so. First of all, God hooks us up with a Christian doctor, Dr. Sharon Castro, which is pictured here. And after 14 months of working, we are now nearly 1 year into a 5-year license. We are fully licensed with the government of Honduras to see patients. That is immeasurably more. We would have never believed it. Now, I could talk to you about a variety of things about the clinic. We could talk about how Dr. Sharon goes out to our churches and does nutritional seminars. We could talk about how Dr. Sharon does medical missions with our teams. But what I want to share with you is how here's a Christian doctor that understands the importance of knowing Christ and people knowing Christ. If you go to the next slide, just some quick pictures. But she's in one of our churches. They're at the clinic with this. By the way, this baby belongs to Erica, who grew up at Faith Home. So we're helping her take care of her baby because, again, a free clinic. If you go to the next slide, these are 2 ladies. The kingdom grew because Dr. Sharon shared Jesus with these ladies. One of them on a medical team. She was having a heart issue, but Sharon said more than anything else, you needed a new heart. And she placed her hand on her heart and they prayed, and the kingdom grew. Yay, Jesus, right? The other one, the lady's pregnant, and I don't really have time to go through how prenatal care really is a real issue down there for ladies, and we're trying to meet that need. This young mother getting ready to give birth, as you can tell, but Dr. Sharon said, if you want to be the best mother you can be, you need to know Christ. And she began to cry because she didn't. And Dr. Sharon led her to the Lord on the spot and was praying for the mother and the baby, and the in the clinic that had been storage for years. Yeah. Immeasurably more. Immeasurably more. We couldn't. And when I went back, just for those few days, Dr. Sharon asked me to come down, and there's a lady that was connected with one of our churches that the pastor called and said, "Can you see her?" And she said, "Yes." And the lady has terminal cancer. Knew about the church, but wasn't going to the church. But the kingdom grew, and Dr. Sharon said, "Look, I know the great physician." See, immeasurably more. So when people ask us what's going on in Honduras, like, how much time do you have? All right, because God's doing some really, really neat things down there. And if you go to the next slide, yes, I do want to share a little more of Lizelle's story, because I think it only highlights what God has done. If you remember, we took her to the pediatrician, I said, or the pediatric neurologist, because we were concerned. And he said he'd done all he could do. And then he ended that session by simply saying, "You know, it's in God's hands." Now, we know what that means, right? When a doctor says that, we know what it means, right? And I'll make a confession to you this morning. Those were not the words that I wanted to hear that day. And that night, as I'd like to say I was praying and letting God speak to my heart, I was really complaining. I said, "God, here's a precious little gift. She didn't do anything. She didn't ask for this mess. You know, at every turn it just seemed like things are difficult." And when I stopped complaining long enough, the Spirit moved, and it's one of those moments where God speaks. And I'll never forget what God said. He said, "Where else do you want that little girl? But in my hands." You know, that's where we should have started. We should have realized all along that she's in those beautiful hands. Think about the variety of passages that speak of the hands. It says, "Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for God, I will strengthen you, and I will uphold you in my righteous right." God said, "I've engraved your name on the palm of my hand." Jesus said, "No one can snatch you out of my hands." Those hands that touched the leper, the hands that broke the bread and fed the thousands. See, those are the hands that Lisa was in. And that's where I want her to be. That's where I want her to be. I will tell you that God hooked us up with some great doctors for the evaluation, and you know part of her story. She will have surgery Wednesday, and it's a 6-hour surgery, and it's big, and she's still tiny. She was 3, but she still weighs less than 19 pounds. I know she's in God's hands, but you pray for that little girl. You pray for the doctors that they'll be at their best. Even little things become big things. But God's got this. Now the neurologist, which by the way that we took her to the Children's Hospital in St. Louis, not only runs the clinic in St. Louis, but also in New York City. World renowned for cerebral palsy. And she spent a couple of hours with Lisa. 2 different visits, an hour each time. And I began to ask some questions after some testing that we had done. And even the doctor didn't give me the answers I really was hoping for. She may never be verbal. She may never walk without some sort of apparatus to help her hold herself upright. But Dr. Pearson ended the visit with these words. She says, "You know, these are just my opinions based on my experience." But she said, "I'm not in control of those things." Amen, but we know the one who is. And I believe that those hands of our Lord has reached down, and I don't know why He chose Lizelle to come to Faith Home. Why He opened the door that she could come and receive some treatment here because there's just a lot of children in Honduras that need those same things. And unfortunately, they're not a faith home, and we're not able to fight for those. But I know that God has His faith home. But here's what I want to end with. This is real important. If you know Jesus Christ this morning, then you too live your life in His hands. If you know Him this morning, you live your life and your family is in His hands. And it doesn't matter what you're going through or what you've been through or what is in front of you. All right? You're in His hands. And our God is not worried about percentages today. He is simply calling us as His people to be faithful and obedient to the heavenly calling that He has placed upon us as His people to be a part of His church. And so we go forth today, not in any semblance of fear, but in the true belief that we live our life in His hand, and if He wants to get rid of the storm, it's gone. And if He wants to take us through the storm, we'll get through the storm. If He opens the door, no one's going to shut it. And even when they are against us, it doesn't matter because God is for us. We live life in His hands. And it took a little girl by the name of Lucille to drive that point home to me one night as I sat in my chair. And as my complaints turned to prayers. And that happened because I started to focus on what was truly important. And that wasn't on what doctors thought or what they could do, but it was on what God could do. So we live in His hands. We go forth in His hands. He just calls us to be obedient and to be faithful. And I pray that we'll be able to fight for these children. Pray that we'll see things happen in Honduras, but we'll see them happen in the Philippines and India and Africa. Doesn't matter. Wherever there's people that need the Lord, He is calling His church to go and to play. May God bless you this morning. Let's end. Lord, we thank You for who You are. And we thank You that when our faith is not all that it should be, but we thank You that You're above all. And we're thankful that You give us a grace that is sufficient for all of our needs. And God, we're thankful that even when we can't figure things out, we know that You're going to do immeasurably more because it's just who You are. So we thank You today, Lord. And we give our lives to You.